Hello everybody, my name is Benjamin Bloom and it's finally happened, the most controversial switch from the managerial dugout of the pre-season so far. Steve Bruce out of Sheffield Wednesday in to Newcastle United. We've known about it for a fair old while now, but it's taken its sweet time, as is the way sometimes with these things, for it to actually confirm. What a saga. Let's go through the timeline of it and then we'll try and figure out from a Newcastle point, from a Wednesday point and from Bruce's point what has happened. Bear with me because it's worth going through the whole saga of this. We're going to go back March 2016. Benitez hired by Newcastle, 5 games to go. Can't save them from relegation. Down they go, and Benitez stays with Newcastle in the Championship. The 16-17 season starts. Newcastle actually lose the first 2 games, but they win 14 of their first 18 games. They're on their way to promotion right from the end of August, really, right up to the top of the league. Villa, on the other hand, who are important in this, don't worry, I haven't gone mad, start badly. Roberto Di Matteo is gone by the start of October, and in comes Steve Bruce. So at a rough sort of equivalent point 3 seasons ago, nearly, you've got Bruce managing Villa and Benitez managing Newcastle. So both Newcastle and Villa in 16-17 spend basically a ton of money to get up. I'm not worried about what they got in. I know they got money in, but in terms of the spend, it was massive. Newcastle on Ritchie, Gale, Sells, Hanley, Clark, Yedlin, Diarmi, Murphy. Villa even more so. McCormack, Codger, Hogan, Chester, Tishbola, Galini, Jednak, Elphick, Hurahan, Adoma, Bree and Lansbury. Both teams looked equipped to go up, but Newcastle finished under Benitez in first with 94 points. Villa in 13th under Bruce with 62. 17-18, Rafa finishes 10th in the Premier League. Bruce has a whole season at Villa, bit more austerity Villa now, loan signings rather than big ones, but still Graben and Terry and Snodgrass coming in on very high wages. But the gamble again doesn't pay off. Steve Bruce finishes 4th. He meets a very good Fulham team in the playoff final, and they lose. The 18-19 season, so last season starts. Rafa is now going into the final year of his contract at Villa. Bruce they're surviving this kind of huge financial iceberg. Dr. Tony spent all his money. They're bailed out by new ownership. Villa really close to the brink there. We have to say in his personal life, Steve Bruce has a horrible time. Both of his parents pass on in quick succession throughout the middle of that year. Villa start badly, and the cabbage was flying at Villa Park, and Bruce, very similar to Di Matteo, is sacked in October. Meanwhile, in Newcastle, Rafa, he's on his way to 13th in the Premier League, which many people consider a triumph under the ownership of Mike Ashley. No contract agreed yet. On December the 22nd of 2018, Josh Lukai is fired by Sheffield Wednesday, and it's announced on January the 2nd that Steve Bruce will take over, but he will not start work until February the 1st. When I say he won't start work, he won't be in the building, because Agnew and Clements, in they go to start the job, and I'm sure Steve Bruce was on the end of the phone, but this is compassionate leave to recharge the batteries, including watching the England cricket in somewhere far-flung, probably in the West Indies or something like that. Bruce arrives at the start of February for Sheffield Wednesday, and this is the whole snag in the tail. Actually does a very, very good job. Unbeaten in his first 11 games. Wednesday moved from, third quartile of the league, lower third quartile, right up to pushing for the playoffs. And it's only what was quite an unlucky defeat against Villa, who ended up going up. And they were on a hot streak then, on the way to winning 10 on the trot to get into their playoff position. And Leeds, this was before the horrible Easter collapse, beat them as well. Without those two defeats, and also against a playoff rival there. Wednesday would have been right up against that playoff line right to the last day of the season. So certainly a big turnaround and a good job there done clearing up after Lehukai by Steve Bruce. The season finishes. Newcastle fans are clamouring for Rafa to be given a new contract and some money to spend. This has not yet happened under Sports Direct's Mike Ashley's ownerships. But on the 30th of June, Rafa leaves Newcastle with the club, saying they'd been unable, it had not been possible to reach an agreement with Rafa to continue on as the manager. Newcastle are then linked to Gary Monk, Mikel Arteta early on. These links dissipate, and all of a sudden, here comes Steve Bruce as the front runner, much to the annoyance of a lot of Newcastle fans and possibly Sheffield Wednesday fans. Talks between the two clubs start. After a friendly, Steve Bruce gets a mic put in his face, says what's happening. He gets asked what's happening and says, well, basically, it's down to the two clubs. He kind of straight bats it away. But it looks very much like he's interested. And then we get to this past Monday, and it is reported that Steve Bruce has resigned from Sheffield Wednesday amidst lots of accusations now of a lack of loyalty. Finally, it appears the compensation is all sorted out, that issue, and Bruce is announced at Newcastle. Wow, what a tawdry tale that is. Let's talk about Newcastle first. I know Newcastle fans seem to be annoyed by this appointment. I don't really know what else to expect now under Mike Ashley's tenure. It's been a steady lot of kind of underwhelming appointments. It strikes me Ashley wants a very experienced pair of hands. He's had Pardew there, Steve McLaren, John Carver. Rafa was the one that kind of bucked the trend, this European Cup winning manager, La Liga winning manager from Real Madrid and Chelsea and Valencia and Liverpool. But I know Big Sam was approached here, and it's back to the kind of old tried and tested. We know Ashley tries to operate this as a business, and the number one priority is that £100 million a year TV money that comes from a Premier League place, and maintaining that income is the key. So that's kind of his remit, and I'm not really surprised at this type of appointment. What I will say about Steve Bruce, and the story didn't go he was terrible at Villa and then terrible at Wednesday. After recharging his batteries, he did do a good job at Sheffield Wednesday. What you don't get from Steve Bruce is a young, modern, up with new tactics and this kind of European type manager that we get in the Championship now. You get an experienced, savvy manager who is good in game in terms of standing on the sidelines, finding holes, plugging holes, tweaking in game. I'm an Ipswich fan. I saw Mick McCarthy do this for years. It seemed like it didn't matter what team he put out. He was confident that he would see things before other people on the pitch and plug gaps and make his team hard to beat. So, sounds like that's what Newcastle are going to be next season. If you're a Newcastle fan and watching, let me know what you think of the appointment. I know it's been a kind of unanimous thumbs down, but what did you really expect? And in the absence of any kind of takeover, which seems to be teased and never happens, this appointment does not surprise me in the slightest, really. In terms of Sheffield Wednesday, where does this leave them? Mr. Chansiri, the owner, has gambled some more. Under Carlos Carvajal, they came very close playoff final, and the irony of all ironies, they lose to Hull, who's sitting in the opposition dugout. Steve Bruce, of course he is. They're trying now to rectify the past spending. The FFP is catching them up. We had a very late set of accounts submitted by Sheffield Wednesday where they've done this trick now that a couple of Championship teams have done of selling their ground back to themselves and leasing it, you can only do that once. So we know it's tight money-wise now going forward for Sheffield Wednesday, as Mr. Chansiri continues to try and find ways of getting Wednesday up into the Premier League. It looked a good hire when you look at the results. Complete swing round from Lahukai to Bruce. But he's gone. And he's also gone at a time that's very close to the start of the season. We know the transfer window has been moved forward this season. Obviously, having just said, there's not going to be a great deal of incomings. Bruce had bought in, Odebajo, Horner, the centre-back, Kadeem Harris as well. So there had been players bought in all for free, all kind of bargain basement type signings. But you would have thought, if you're a Wednesday fan, given the form at the end of last season and that Bruce seemed to have got his mojo back, that, you wouldn't have had a half bad season. Certainly that, 8th to 13th sort of area should have been a target. And then with a good season, there's always a chance in the Championship, isn't there? Getting around that playoff mix with 10 games to go. Anybody can get in there and on a roll. So the names coming up for Wednesday to replace Bruce with Houghton, Monk, Rowett, Karanka, Daniel Stendel in a job at Barnsley. Houghton, Monk, Rowett, Karanka all out of work. I would suggest that all of those are fairly pragmatic, long and tooth Championship managers. But the most recently successful in there, I know Chris Hughton's been in the Premier League, but the job Gary Monk did at Birmingham, given they failed FFP, and Wednesday could be close to that if their accounts are not on an upward trajectory. Monk might be the right guy. They managed in Leeds before in Yorkshire. We shall see. Lot of questions and a lot of chitter-chatter about loyalty. That Steve Bruce was given good treatment by Mr. Chansiri. He was given the time off. His assistants were allowed to run it for a month before he came in. And that Bruce has not repaid that loyalty very well by resigning and going off to Newcastle. We know he's a Newcastle fan. By the way, this is a guy that's managed both Birmingham and Villa, so he's not a stranger to controversial move, and he's managed Sunderland before. Bruce is 58, and this is possibly a chance he didn't expect to get back in the Premier League. So I'd be interested to know in the comments, even if you're not a Wednesday fan, are you on the side of, no, you need to be loyal, they were good to you, you need to now be good to them and not jump off at the first opportunity? Or are you on the side of, there's no loyalty in football. Whenever a player gets a chance to go to a bigger club and get a higher salary, off they go. Whenever a manager has a few bad games, out they go, the sack. Bruce supports Newcastle. He's 58, possibly the last chance to do this. And being as there's no loyalty in football, why should he show any? I'd be very interested to see which side of the coin people fall on the loyalty debate. So that is about the story of Rafa leaving and Bruce ditching Sheffield Wednesday for Newcastle United. If you're a Newcastle fan, a Wednesday fan, if you just want to talk about the loyalty thing, normal Championship fan, so many things to comment on. Newcastle going forward, Wednesday going forward, Bruce's loyalty, and who comes in to Wednesday. And I would love to hear your feedback in the comments. We're getting ever closer to the season, so if this is your first time watching one of my videos, then please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for regular Championship content, because believe me, there's going to be plenty of that, probably almost daily as we get into the season and the games come thick and fast, to use a well-worn cliche, and the news comes thick and fast as well. Stay tuned for more transfer updates before the season starts, and I'm going to be at Friendlies from Friday as well. Thank you very much for watching. Follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom, and I will see you very soon. Over and out.